Michelle Kirton, welcome back to the MEPS Speaking of Steel studio. We've got another Marketing Minutes episode, and this week we're going to be focusing on the European stainless steel market. I guess we'll start off by just asking what were the price trends this time around in MEPS research period?
Yeah, I mean, for the European stainless prices, we had obviously the mills managed to get a few slight increases in February. So they came into March looking for more increases. Unfortunately, the market wasn't quite with them in March, and a lot of the distributors and stockists were pushing back on the price increases. So a lot of the prices rolled over from February. A lot of the deals that were done, the mills came in asking for €2.60 a kilo for the 304 cold rolled sheet. But the deals were being done at 253, 255. So we didn't really see much price movement in March. I mean, speaking to the research partners, a lot of the pushback was because demand had dropped off in March compared to February. And the biggest thing for them really is the fact that they just can't pass any increases onto their customers. Nobody's wanting to pay any more through the supply chain. So margins are really, really tight. You know, we're looking at replacement costs that are just below, in some cases, or even on par with, the selling prices that they're able to achieve. So there's just no margin in there for any increases for them to pay more for the replacement material at the minute.
So I guess you've touched on some of the factors there, but what I was going to ask you about next really was the balance of supply and demand in the market. Imports are always a factor, of course, but just how is that affecting the steel prices this month?
Yeah, I mean, we've still got quite a lot of material in the market. The main thing is demand, really. Demand is just really weak. Most people would refer to it as the volumes aren't particularly terrible, but they're not great. People would be happier with the volumes if they could make more money from what they were selling. The supply is still really good. We've got a lot of imports coming in. A lot of the quotas still filled for the Chinese hot rolled plate. We saw the quota fill for the Taiwanese cold rolled coil again. And obviously we had a new quota opening yesterday, which is likely to fill for those two products. And of course the Indian long products that come in, they're likely to fill fairly quickly again in the next couple of days. So we've still got quite a lot of imports coming in on certain products. The European mills have been trying to cut back on some of their capacity. We've seen extended maintenance breaks, lower shift patterns. But yeah, we've still got quite a lot of supply compared to the current level of demand that we've got in the market.
Okay, well, I'm aware this month that, as we've just spoken about in a separate podcast episode, we've had revisions to the EU safeguard measures this month, and also the developments in the US import tariffs. What's the outlook now for the stainless steel market in Europe? What's sentiment like?
Yeah, I mean, I guess from the safeguard revision, the mills were probably quite disappointed that there wasn't more for the stainless quotas in there. So it's not really going to have much of an impact in the short term. The proposal for the melt and pour rule in the Steel Action Plan could possibly have an impact further down the line. Obviously, countries like Malaysia and Vietnam don't melt their own stainless, so it would curb imports coming in from countries like that. Taiwan do have their own, they do have the capabilities to melt, but don't always. So I guess they would have to think about going back. But yeah, I mean, from a sentiment point of view, I think that was the biggest hit for the European market in March. Actually, the uncertainty was the key word of this month's research in probably every region that we research, and that is because of the trade tariffs that have been implemented. Obviously, the Section 232. Europe won't have their quota allowance anymore. And while this won't directly affect all the distributors and stockists, it will affect their end users. And if it affects them and they're producing less, then they're going to be buying less steel. So it has a knock-on effect. So everything was just very, very cautious in March. People are just not buying anything more than what they need. I guess it was a bit stagnant. Nothing was just moving.
And I guess in terms of a price outlook, is it a similar trend?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the price moving forward, I think the European steel makers will certainly try to push for an increase in April and May bookings. Obviously, they need to try and increase their profitability like everybody else, which is why they're pushing for an increase. I think we'll see a very similar situation with the distributors and stockists pushing back. So I think we'll see, stable pricing, maybe some small increases if they are really lucky. Heading into the summer months, we tend to see prices soften over the summer. In fact, we've already heard of one of the producers in Europe offering cheaper prices for deliveries of July and August material at prices lower than the booking now for immediate delivery, which I guess is a good indication that the mills are anticipating lower demand and pricing in the summer. And then into the second half of the year, if some of these import measures do start to restrict the volumes coming in, the mills may find that they have a better opportunity to raise prices later in the year.
Great stuff. Interesting insight, and I guess people should keep an eye on those MEPS forecasts going forward to have a better idea of where we say things are headed.
Yeah, certainly.
Great stuff. Michelle, thanks ever so much for joining me again on Speaking of Steel's Marketing Minutes episode. Much appreciated.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.